Okay, hey everybody, Teching 101 here, and welcome back to BAN-KAST, the greatest Bleach-themed podcast of ever there was one. Today we're going to be covering and breaking down Episode 2 of Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War Arc, Foundation Stones. But before we get into that, I just wanted to say I want to give a massive shout-out and thanks to everybody that watched the first episode of BAN-KAST, because that was the premiere, that was sort of the thing that was going to, make it or break it, as it were. This show had a few different ideas, like formats in my head, exactly how I was going to structure it. So I decided to go with this, with the actual episode, and we'll go like frame by frame with the most important parts and talk about it and compare it to the manga. That seems to be what a lot of people liked. The last video got a decent amount of views, so I'm just going to keep it up with this format. Let's see what else. Oh yes, eventually, because there's a lot more Bleach episodes to come from this. I think if we're going like 4 to 5 chapters per episode, which seems to be the rate that we're going here. Last episode was chapters 480 to 484, and this episode is chapters 485 to 488, 489. Keep in mind, not every single scene in the manga is adapted, and we'll get into that as we go. Some scenes might be omitted, some scenes might be moved around, some scenes might even be extended from the manga, hopefully, considering what we're going to get into later on in the arc. But if they keep like 4 to 5 chapters per episode, about 200 chapters of the final arc, probably around maybe 40-something episodes overall of the season, which I think was in a lot of people's ballparks. But anyway, we got a lot of episodes coming up, and I do want to have some other people as guests on here on BAN-KAST to talk about the episode and break it down. I have a few people in mind, pretty much all the major Bleach YouTubers, but if there's anybody in particular that you would like to see on BAN-KAST, please comment down below, and we'll see if we can get them on. All right, so yes, starting off with the episode, also should bring up, this is the first episode we're going to get the opening and ending themes to the new arc. Last episode, we did not have the opening theme, and then the ending was more of a celebration of Bleach, like the Bleach Rewind, which was really epic, but that was not the standard ending theme. I actually would have been happy if it was, because it was pretty cool. However, I will say, the ending theme now, Saihate by Senna-Rin, I'll just say, based on my first viewing of this episode, I like the ending more than the opening. I've listened to both of them a few times now, and the opening is beginning to grow on me. The opening is Scar by Tatsuya Kitane, and it's pretty good for a Bleach opening, but I really like the ending theme. I think it really, just fits the vibe of this last season. And speaking of vibe, let's just start off, because this sexy Quincy King right here, this is Yhwach Bach. This is the Quincy King, and you know how many shits he gives? 0. That's about how many. In fact, it might be in the negative numbers of shits that he gives with the Arankars in his army. So we see him at the end of the last episode where he just showed up, like the mysterious Quincy King, and Ludas and Ebern returned from their individual missions to report in to Yhwach in his throne room. And Ludas was it wasn't even a fight really. It was just mild passive aggressiveness. Ludas was being slightly sarcastic to Ebern, and that was it. And for that alone, Yhwach just severs Ludas's right arm, just blows it right out of its socket, and he's on the ground bleeding out, and Yhwach's just there I do not like conflict. So if you haven't read the manga of the final arc, you're gonna get introduced to Yhwach's character pretty damn quickly here, and just the kind of person he is, the kind of villain, and how few shits he gives about anything. Okay, so very, very different from Aizen. There are similarities, because Yhwach and Aizen both sort of have that very stoic, calm, I'm just better than you kind of attitude for all of their underlings. But Yhwach really just, I guess, he just has no patience, essentially. He's just nope, you're fighting, or it's whatever he wants. He'll just sever an arm, decapitate somebody, blow up someone's head. He just does this casually because he's the Quincy god and he freaking knows it. Okay, and by the way, I want to talk about just the first shot of this episode. It's so good, where you have Yhwach here just staring like that's the way it's gonna go, and then the camera pans, and it's this awesome twist effect where it's actually the reflection of Yhwach in Ludas's blood. The poor dude's on the ground. He just got his arm and the entire right side of his torso just blown off, and he's now just laying in a pool of his own blood, but he still has to give his report. He's just that was his crime for being mildly sarcastic to Ebern, and it's just nope, we're not playing playing around here. So yeah, this is Yhwach. This is the Quincy King. You know, get used to this. So Yhwach, you get the impression also he loves toying with his underlings, especially the Arrancar, who, by the way, he doesn't even really view as his underlings, right? The Quincies do not view hollows very highly. We'll get more into that as we go throughout the season. But Yhwach literally just does not view them as, like, any sort of, like, not even really as people, I would imagine. He literally views them as just pawns on his chessboard, the lowest ranked piece. Like, if there was a piece on the chessboard that was lower ranked than a pawn, that is what Ludas and Ebern would be in Yhwach's eyes. And he will just, you know, toy with them, destroy them. It doesn't matter. He just simply does not care. So here he's like, I'll permit you to lie down. You know, you seem like you're a little bit in pain there. And then Ludas is like, oh, I would never disrespect you. And because, like, Yhwach is also like, oh, by the way, if you are going to lie down, I might as well blow off your legs, too, because you're not going to need those if you're going to lie down. And so Ludas is like, no, it's cool. It's cool. I got this. I got it. Okay, the massive blood loss is fine. Ebern is still back there shaking in his boots. He's like, oh, God. It's like, imagine you get called into the principal's office, and the principal was, like, in the middle of, like, yelling at another student. So you walk in, and you're like, yeah, you go sit down on the chair. I'm finishing up with this person that, like, threw a cherry bomb in the toilet at lunchtime or whatever, and just, like, yelling at him and screaming, and you're just sitting in the chair like, am I next? Like, oh my God, what's gonna happen to me if this is what this dude's getting? So Foundation Stones is the name of the episode on Ludas's severed arm there in the blood pool. So this is a callback. I'm glad they're still doing this, where the Bleach title cards in each episode would be like a different kind of, not just a different font, although there were, but like a different starting screen for every episode. Every, like, title card screen would be a little different. Sometimes they would have designs based off of, like, the captains or the Arrancars or the Quincies or whatever. And so they're a little bit different here, where the titles are actually appearing in the actual, like, episode themselves. Like, so Ludas loses an arm, and the title of the episode appears on the arm. So you can imagine how they're going to play with that throughout the rest of the series. That happens in the manga as well. But yeah, so let's get into the opening theme. So this is Scar by Tatsuya Kitane. Starts off with the Bleach logo kind of like bleeding in with the cracks in the ground, and we get to see Ichigo here. This is actually taken from, a lot of this stuff is taken from cover pages, but this is taken from actually one of the last cover spreads of the Bleach manga. This was from, like, chapter 684, 685. I think it's 685. I think it was the second to last chapter this particular scene is taken from. Everything is backlit pink, which I wasn't sure of at first, but they're really playing around with colors in this, you know? So the Quincies are all colored blue. Ichigo's Getsuga is now yellow, and then we're going to see later in the episode with, like, the Garganta and everything. So the color effects are really good in this one, and the opening just happens to be pink. So we see Ichigo's group. We see Ichigo. We see Orihime there. She's doing the standard anime girl thing where she's looking very somber while staring at her reflection in a window. That's like, even though I don't know if that has a specific name, but, like, everybody understood what I just said, you know? Like, oh yeah, the anime girl thing where she's looking very sad staring out of a window. Yeah, we've all seen that before. Even if you can't think of a specific example from another anime, we've all seen that before, right? Like, absolutely. There's Orihime. There's Chad running around town doing his morning jog. We also see that later in the episode, him doing his morning jog. I think that's the anime trying their best to sort of set up that, like, yeah, Chad's going to be a boxer by the end of this, so, yeah, we got to show him working out in the morning a little bit there. That's what Chad does. All right. We see Uryu there in his bedroom staring at his Quincy cross, and then Ichigo standing in the rain. The rain! You got to pay attention to the rain, guys. I'm telling you what, right now, if you do not pay attention to the symbolism of rain in Bleach, I don't even know what you're doing with your life, okay? You got to pay attention to the rain. That's all I'm saying. So, this is a really cool shot, and by the way, I missed this the first time I watched this. I didn't pick this up until, like, the third time through. But then we got a shot of all the different captains and vice captains of the Gotei 13. So here we have Yamamoto and Chojiro Sasakibe, who died in the last chapter, the last episode, right? And then, of course, we have, did I skip Soifone? I think I skipped Soifone with actually the Q points. All right, that's so perfect, given the fact of, like, I'm not a huge fan of Soifone, but whatever. whatever. Okay, so we got Rose and Izuru. We got we got Urahara and Isane. We got Shinji and Momo. We got Byakuya and Renji. We got Iba and Komamura. We got Shunsui Kyoraku and now Issei. We got Kensei and Shuhei. We got Toshiro and Rangiku. We got Kenpachi and Yachiru. We got Mayuri and Nemu, and we got Rukia and Ukitake. I did just happen to forget. That wasn't on purpose. I thought I got all of them, but no. So anyway, did you guys notice the thing aside from the captains and the lieutenants in the shot? Did you notice the flowers are of their division's flowers? I can't believe I missed that the first time through. So every squad in the Gote 13, every division has like a symbol, and the symbol is a flower or some kind of plant, okay? And each squad has a different one. And so they're standing in the fields of their respective division's flowers. And I love that. That is so cool, right? Because the flower thing is not really something that's like, you see the symbols in the anime, but it's never something that's like, I think the only time it's ever directly mentioned by a character is when Izuru was fighting against Avarama Redder, who was one of Baragon's Fraxion back in the Fake Karakura arc, and Izuru mentions that, like, the symbol of Squad 3 is the marigold, and you see it right there, a bunch of marigolds, okay? And so, yeah, that's like the only time it's ever brought up, but each of the Gote have an individual flower. So the chrysanthemum is Squad 1, so you see Genryusai, Shigekune, Yamamoto, and Shojiro Sasakibe standing in a field of chrysanthemums. And Squad 2 was the tulip, but we don't have Squad 2. We're skipping right along here. So Squad 3, we have Izuru, and we have Rose, Rojiro Otorobashi in a field of marigolds. Then we have Squad 4, which is, I have it queued up next to me because I don't remember all of them. But Squad 4 is the bellflower with Unohana and Isane. Squad 5 is the lily of the valley. Squad 6 is camellias. So we see Byakuya there staring at some camellias. The iris is Squad 7. Bird of Paradise is Squad 8. We see that in the foreground. They even play with it. It's not all of, like, they could have easily done, like, all of the squads just standing in a field of their respective flowers, but they play with it a little bit there with, like, the Bird of Paradise flower being in a plant that's in the foreground, like a potted plant, and then in the background you see Shunsui and Nanao. So that's a really cool way to do it. Then we have Squad 9, which is the white poppy. Squad 10 is the daffodil. Squad 11 is the yarrow. Squad 12 is the thistle. And then finally we have Squad 13, which is the snowdrop, or the winter snowdrop. And we see Ukitake and Rukia standing amidst a field of the snowdrops. And so I missed that the first time through, but it is such a cool little focus they did there. We also have this shot right here of Ichigo in his inner world with the hollow version of himself. So yeah, there is like a lot of spoilers, especially this shot right here of here's Zangetsu, and then we zoom into Zangetsu's sunglasses, and boom, it's Yhwach. So it's like they're really just going right ahead with it. So that's what I said. There will be spoilers in this, because I feel like if I don't put spoilers for the future chapters, then it's just going to be me just reviewing it's going to be the same thing as like the first time I did all of this, right? It's just going to be repetition. And part of the fun here for me anyway is to look through the anime and see what they do and what they change in the manga, and maybe even foreshadowing some stuff way later on, which we're actually going to get with Yhwach here from a whole different perspective. So yeah, just pay that in mind though. There will be spoilers for the upcoming manga chapters, so just, there's that. There's Uryu looking a little bit emo there. He's got his Quincy cross. He's just like, oh, I'm such a complex character. There's so many interesting things going on with me right now. Oh, this arc is going to be so interesting for my character. Then we have Yhwach here standing amidst all of the sternritters. So you were thinking spoilers? Wait until you get this. We have Yhwach standing with every single sternritter we're going to be introduced to in this entire season, okay? So we have Yhwach standing with his royal guard around him, sternritter X, C, and M. And then we have all the other sternritters below him. And we even see Uryu there off to the right, so that's kind of a spoiler in and of itself. Like, yeah, Uryu's gonna join the Vandenreich, so if you didn't already know that, well, now you do, I guess. There you are. But it's really cool. This is actually adapted from one of my favorite, probably my favorite cover page spread in the entirety of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. And I can't remember what chapter it's from. I want to say 640, something like that, but it's when we get introduced to all of the Quincies. Like, all of the Quincies had been introduced by the point when we get to see this cover page, okay? So it's crazy we're getting it this early in the opening, but hey, man, those are the sternritters. That's what you got to do here. Then we have just shots of the different Shinigami fighting against the Quincies. Here's Renji fighting against Asnote. Here's Bambi fighting against Komamura. Here's Soifone fighting against BG9. Yeah, and then we just have Yhwach here lording above all of them and just like using his Aswollen, his holy selection. Ichigo has his Bankai. Here's the last shot with Ichigo and his new Zanpakuto, his new twin sword Zangetsu, so that's another spoiler. And then we have the title card again as it like bleeds out this time, going back to like all cracked and like unfilled. Bleach 1,000-year blood war arc. Ooh boy, it's so crazy. So let's see here. I want to see if we got another shot here. We have a shot in Ichigo's room where we just have Orihime there and Uryu and everybody, and Yuki is still there. Yuki Ryunosuke from the last episode, and he's basically just like, you know, is Ichigo going to be okay? He's kind of like, you know, gone for a while. And all of Ichigo's friends are just like, nah, it's cool. Like, he's going to be back. I know he's going to be back because he's Ichigo. The other guy's spiritual pressure disappeared, so he's not coming back. So Yuki actually gets a phone call on his soul pager, and it actually talks about, like, let's see if I can get the scene here. It actually does talk about the invading army right here. So this is like his soul pager. It was like an old 2000 cell phone, which is interesting because as we've already seen in the last episode, like the living world is like contemporary with like 2022. So they have like smartphones, and I think Ichigo even has a PlayStation 5 in the background in this episode. So Ichigo managed to get a PS5. But anyway, yeah. So the technology of the Soul Society though is still very much kept in like early 2000s. So that's the kind of phones they're working with here with the soul pagers. This has actually changed a little bit from the manga, where Yuki's ringtone in the manga is actually Shino's voice, like singing or like humming to herself. I'm not exactly sure where he would have recorded that. By the way, Shino's full name, as a lot of people pointed out in the last chapter, in the last episode, Shino's full name is Shino Madarame. She is related to Ikkaku Madarame in some way. This, I believe, was revealed in the Can't Fear Your Own World light novel. However, I think in that novel, Ikkaku doesn't remember whether or not Shino is one of his sisters or a cousin. And I think that might just be because maybe Ikkaku has a lot of siblings that we just never really knew about. We don't know much about Ikkaku's, like, family, but Shino is related to Ikkaku in some way. So yeah, that's the thing. That's an example right there of something that was not revealed. Because I went back and checked, and it was not revealed in the manga of what Shino's, like, full name was, okay? And so that was only something that was mentioned in the light novel that they added in here for more context. So keep that up. A lot more cool stuff. But yeah, Yuki's original ringtone was like Shino like humming to herself, like and then there was this moment where Shino was like really embarrassed by it and everything. So yeah, that's all cut out. And in other ways, the call was a direct report to Ryunosuke, like, hey, just letting you know, Chodoro Sasakibe was murdered. You got to come back now for a company funeral, okay? In this version, it's a little different, where it's actually it's kind of like a mass phone call, like report to everybody that has a soul pager. Like, it's like a loudspeaker, like kind of like announcement to everybody in the Gotei. It's not specifically addressed to Yuki. And it's that, like, okay, Squad 1 was standing guard at this gate, at the northern gate, I believe it was. It got completely wiped out. You know, Chodoro Sasakibe, he was also killed, so you all need to come back for, like, the company-wide funeral there. You know, the Quincies invaded. We don't know where they went. They have some way of bypassing the soul shield membrane, the Seki stone that covers the entirety of the Soul Society, the Seirete, that's supposed to, like, prevent unauthorized entry. So they have some way of getting around that. There's Akon in the, you know, research and development, like, reporting that to everybody. So that gives the excuse on why Ryunosuke and Shino have to go back to the Soul Society there. So Ichigo's a little bit, like, perturbed by that. He's just not really sure about, like, okay, this is giving him the heebie-jeebies. You know, this is giving him just, like, a weird kind of goosebump sort of feeling. And so he decides to go patrolling in the area in the early morning. And then, boom, he runs into Nell. Nell pops out of the sky. So it's been a long time since we've seen Nell. Last time we saw Nell was after the fight with Noitara. Nell was just kind of laying there amidst the rubble, and Orihime had, like, healed her after her fight, after she turned into an adult, fought against Noitara, and turned back into a kid. That was the last time we saw her. It's implied that she still has her memories because she was able to remember Noitara's name when she came out of her, like, after she was, like, regained consciousness. But that was the last time we saw her at all, so I'm not really sure. I'm assuming Orihime just healed her up, and then she was reunited with Pesce and Dondochaka, and that was the last time we saw them until right now, when she just falls out of a Garganta in the sky and slams into Ichigo Ichigo using super acceleration, which is one of her hollow abilities. So they land in the park, which I believe might actually be the same park that Ichigo fought against that centipede hollow in like episode 2 of the anime. So I might have to go back and check on that. But Nell lands and Ichigo's like, "No, what are you doing?" And Ichigo's like, "Ichigo, Hueco Mundo has been attacked by Quincies." And so Ichigo's like, "What?" Well, she doesn't actually say Quincies. We'll learn about that as we go. They don't actually know the enemy is Quincies yet. So now we cut back over to the Silbern, or the Quincy Palace of the Vondenreich, and we now see Yhwach standing there or sitting down being like, "All right, now you're going to tell me, Ludas, give me a report." So Ludas gives him a report of like, "Oh, okay, well, I went to Yamamoto and I told him that like within 5 days we're going to conquer you." And Yhwach has something to say about that. He's like, "Ludas Frieden, are you who stands before me right now at this very moment, are you a prophet?" And Ludas is just like, no. Because it seems like what you're saying, you know that we're going to conquer them in 5 days. You're talking about the future as if you know what's going to happen. And actually, a few days ago, you mentioned that we should be able to take over the Soul Society in a few days. I'm just wondering, are you a prophet? And he's just like, "No, sir, I just used inductive reasoning to, figure out maybe in the future that we can, boom," and he just blows his head off. It's just, bam, just gone. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, like I said, you get the vibe now off Yhwach. You're getting that? You seeing where we're going with this? Yhwach is just like, "Nope, okay, you mildly irritated me. Boom!" And by the way, it makes way more sense now of why Yhwach would explodify Ludas's head, because later on we find out Yhwach's ability. He's Sternritter A, the Almighty. He literally has the power to see the future. All possible futures he can see. So that brings this scene here into a whole other context where Yhwach is bringing up to Ludas, like, "Are you a prophet? Are you saying you can see the future and predict it accurately?" And Ludas is like, well, no. I mean, like, bam, you're dead. Because that's basically like saying that, like, you have the power to see the future. No, I'm the only one around here that could see the future. All right, motherfucker. That's how this works, okay? And so, yeah, Ludas just dies. Ebern witnesses this. By the way, Ebern is still burned, like, really bad from Ichigo's fight. But, he's just, like, being very polite and not moving an inch and just like, okay. And then Yhwach looks at him and he's like, "Okay, now how's this gonna go?" And he says, "There is nothing about you worthy of praise or punishment." That is the best compliment. That is the closest thing to a compliment that you are going to get from Yhwach to an Arrancar, right? And so Ebern doesn't really know how to respond to this, I think, and he's just like, "Thank you." And he's like, "Your job is done. You could die now too." And then we cut to Harribel, that is now imprisoned by Yhwach in his palace. Harribel's outfit, by the way, has been uncensored or decensored. The original had her her under boob was all covered up with the skeleton, with her resurrection Tiburon, which means shark. So it's decensored here a little bit, not as bad as it was in the first anime. But yeah, if you thought like that Ebern and Ludas were gonna be like relevant characters in this story, like, oh yeah, Yhwach has an Arrancar army, they're probably gonna be relevant. Nope and nope. They're gone, they're dead. One shot by Yhwach. Not even one shot, just kind of like waves his hand and just die, and then they just explode, okay, and that's it. So I feel a little bit bad for Ebern and Ludas, especially from what we're gonna see later on in the episode. Like, these dudes, like, they were living in Hueco Mundo, and then the Quincies invade, and they're like, "Oh shit, well, all right, well, I don't want to die, maybe I can work for them, maybe this is gonna be like another Aizen, and maybe I'll work for them and I'll try to rise up the ranks." But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter if they performed their duties as well as possible. It doesn't matter if Ebern actually managed to steal Ichigo's Bankai. He probably would have been killed by Yhwach regardless, because Yhwach just does not care about their existence, okay? And this goes back to actually, like, Quincy and Hollow Ryatsu not meshing very well. We're going to find that out a lot later, but basically, yeah, the Hollow Ryatsu is actually essentially poison to the Quincies once it's introduced to theirs. So that's the reason why Quincies have this, like, unnatural hatred of Hollows, kind of like a genetic sort of hatred. And now we're getting into, like, now we're getting to other kinds of, a little bit of perspectives that I think I'm going to dial this back from. But let's just say that the Quincy army in this is based off of a particular army, a particular German army from World War II. I don't think I'm allowed to say the name because this might get demonetized on YouTube, but like, let's just say that there was a particular army in the Axis powers during World War II that the aesthetic of the Quincies are kind of derived from. Okay, let's just leave it at that. All right. So now we see Harribel in prison there, and now we cut over to the Soul Society where we see Chodro Sasakibe's funeral, and we see a bunch of different Shinigami all lined up here. So we see the captains in the front row, of course, Soifon, Rose, Unohana, but then in the back row here, we see various, like, not even just the lieutenants, because Isane is the lieutenant of Squad 4, but then we have Hanataro Yamada, who is the very sheepish, shy, you know, he used to be the 7th seat. I think he's the 3rd seat now of the 4th division, but he's there as well. We see Iba back there. I think we see Rikichi, who is like Rikichi's like Renji's student, or like the guy that like Rikichi looks up to Renji as like a mentor. Also, it was revealed, I think, that Rikichi is Yuki's older brother, and I think that was something else that was revealed. That actually might have been in the manga, but because I think they have the same last name. But anyway, yeah, so there's like the little relationship there. We also see, I think, Tetsufutsu and Joji back there, who is the dude that has, hold on, let me try something else here. I'm gonna try something new. I don't know if this is gonna work or not, but I'll give it a go. So there's like a whiteboard feature that it has. Like, there we go, right here. So Tetsufutsu and Joji is the 3rd seat of Squad 8. He was actually defeated by Chad way back in the Soul Society arc. Remember, Chad shows up at the 8th Division, and Tetsufutsu is the guy that like swings his sword around a bunch. And he's like, "You will be unable to get past me," and then boom, Chad just one-shots like a 3rd seat officer like that. Which, you know, people shit on Chad, but like being able to one-shot a 3rd seat officer in the Soul Society arc, he was pretty freaking beefy. Of course, he was immediately one-shot by Shunsui afterwards, but I mean, it's Shunsui. I mean, come on, he's Shunsui Kyoraku. He's like one of the strongest captains that have ever lived, like, period. But anyway, we have the funeral here for Chodro, and we see the crematorium here, which does bring up a few other questions from what we're going to get, like, in the not even in the manga or the light novel, but the recent last year we had the 75-page like Bleach one-shot of the last breaths from hell. Actually brings up a very interesting question of how do Shinigami like die and what happens to their spirits, especially when they're very high level, like, you know, assistant captain or captain level. So that might tie back into something, just keep in mind. But there's actually something omitted from the manga here that I'm actually kind of upset by. This whole scene is essentially silent right here from like the funeral, and it does make sense because it's very somber, and Yamamoto like remembers his friend who was like his right-hand man for like literally centuries. And we see the scene here with Yamamoto and then Chodro bending the knee to him, like swearing himself in loyalty and fealty to Yamamoto for now and forever. Like, I will never become a captain, I will only be your lieutenant for now and forevermore, because I pledge my allegiance to you, Captain Genryusai Shigekune Yamamoto, head of all of the Gotei 13. Now, in the manga, there was actually a eulogy that was read by Byakuya. Byakuya goes through an entire eulogy about Chodro, and it's probably the only time we get any sort of character development. All the character development we get from Chodro pretty much in this entire story comes from Byakuya's eulogy, which is actually omitted in the episode. Now, I'm hoping that when we finally get to the moment where Yamamoto fights against Driscoll Birchie, who is he's Sternritter O, the Overkill, the one that actually killed Sasakibe. I'm hoping when we finally get to that episode, we will have an entire, and that was also an episode where we got flashback with Chodoro's past. But I'm hoping that episode is all about Chodoro, and maybe we'll get the eulogy there, and they just moved it around. I really hope they don't just omit it altogether, because that was like a really good moment. That was like a really good scene, and I'm actually going to read it for you now from the manga, from chapter 486, The Crimson Cremation. Chodoro Tadeoke Sasakibe was a Soul Reaper who should have been a captain. I'm going to actually put, hold on, let me put an image of Chodoro here as I read this. It's like I'm actually I'm the one giving him the eulogy in this version. In the manga, it was Byakuya Kuchiki, head of the Kuchiki clan, one of the 4 noble houses, captain of the 6th division, giving the eulogy. Here, it's just Tekking 101 Bleach YouTuber, or whatever. Chodoro Tadaoke Sasakibe was a Soul Reaper who should have been a captain. According to the records, he achieved Bankai before Kyoraku or Uketake were even born. However, not once did he display that ability in public since the 13 court guard companies were founded. Captains are not always men of integrity. Despite hearings of his abilities, some would insult him as assistant captains who did not partake in any battles, treated him like just another seated officer. However, even faced with that kind of treatment, Chodoro Sasakibe never cursed his position as an assistant captain, and whenever captains were replaced, no matter how many times there was a vacancy, he adamantly refused not just the position of interim captain, but even the position of being entrusted with the authority of a captain, which Hisagi and Kira held until recently. All because of his fierce loyalty, Chojuro Sasakibe was a man who swore to remain an assistant captain for as long as Genryusai Yamamoto was alive. This man used Bankai for the first time in battle, and he died. The Captain General's grief is beyond the imagination of us neophytes. And so we just see a very... Also in the manga, we see a scene of Yamamoto from the front where he's not crying, but he's very close to. He's very close to weeping for his friend, probably the closest friend that he has still alive in the Soul Society. It is now dead. So the anime did it a very different way, where they cut out the eulogy. It's all silent, and we do not see Yamamoto. It's just implied that he's very, very stricken by grief. I would have to say I prefer the manga version more. I think it just works better. I kind of wish we would have seen Yamamoto's face. I think it was a very powerful scene. And like I said, we still might. It's just that maybe we're getting half of the funeral now and the other half during Chojiro's actual episode that's going to be more focused on him when the Quincies start invading the Soul Society. But I just wanted to bring up there as a reference that Chojiro, it wasn't that he was weak. It's just that he swore loyalty to Yamamoto no matter what. So even when, like, Aizen and Tozen and Gin all defected, and it was like, hey, Chojiro, why not just, like, take up the position, not even, like, as an acting captain, but just, like, as someone that will, like, kind of, like, you know, move around the people of the division, kind of, like, be a leader sort of thing. You know, you don't even have to be captain, like how Izuru and how Hisagi essentially became the captains of their division when their captains defected. You know, and even in that situation, Chojiro refused. He's like, no, I will always be the right-hand man of Yamamoto until the day he dies. And that's what he did, and now he's dead. So, yeah, that's that. But I wanted to bring that up because the funeral is a little different from the manga. Also, there's a scene here where Yamamoto says, light the fire, like the cremation fire, and it immediately cuts to Yuzu using the stove, cooking, like, pasta or something, and there's Karin there. I think this is the first time we're seeing Yuzu and Karin in the, I don't think they were in the last episode, so yeah, that's Ichigo's sisters, Yuzu and Karin. So now we cut to Ichigo's room, where Pesce also arrived alongside Nell, and so now they're now all gathering together in Ichigo's room to kind of figure out a battle plan of what's going to happen next. Hueco Mundo has been invaded by some invading army. They do not know who they are yet, although Pesce brings them up to speed that there was a person that showed up with crazy blue energy powers that captured Harribel. And this is something that is added in the anime that we do not get to see in the manga. In the manga, it's just Pesce talking about how, like, well, since Lord Stark and Lord Baragon are dead, you know, Harribel was essentially running everything in Hueco Mundo, and then all of a sudden these guys showed up and just started storming through the land. So it's actually very, very foreboding to see, like, a swirling sandstorm in Hueco Mundo, and to see the march of the Quincy army as Yhwach is lording over them as literally their Christ figure, and is just, like, attacking the hollows. We see a shot here of Dondochaka, Pesce, and Harribel. This is not in the manga. We see the scene where Harribel looks like she just got punched into a wall, and now the army is marching, and Harribel actually says, you know, get away from this place. And then that's when Harribel, you know, fights against Yhwach. We don't see them fight, but we see a very brief moment of Harribel attacking Yhwach, and then the sandstorm kind of takes them over, and then Pesce and Dondochaka and Nell have to run away. So it's a little bit more of an added scene in the anime than in the manga, and the group decides to go all for Uryu. Uryu decides, like, I can't accompany you this time. I'm a Quincy. I cannot help hollows or Arrancars. And Ichigo brings up, you know, of course, Quincies exist to destroy hollows, right? Something important to bring up here that is going to be very relevant later on. When Uryu says that I'm a Quincy, I can't go help you save hollows, he's not being, like, selfish here. I mean, I guess in a way you could look at it like that, but that's not really what this is about. It's literally like Quincies have a... Quincy and hollow existence is a dichotomy that's essentially that hollows are very deadly to Quincies, and Quincy Ryatsu is very deadly to hollows. So imagine it like if in Pokemon terminology, like, Uryu just being a Quincy, he's double effective against, like, hollow attacks, okay? And for that reason, throughout most of Quincy history, that's why they rose to fight against Hollows, because they're so vulnerable to their attacks, okay? And so there have been so many Quincy, like the basis of being a Quincy on like a genetic level is that you're an enemy of a Hollow. Like that is essentially what it is. Like Uryu is probably just uncomfortable just being around like a Hollow in the room with him right now. Like that would probably be that. I mean, you could look at it from another perspective. So wait, Uryu is like a little prejudiced against Hollows. Like, I mean, like, yeah, kind of. Like it is kind of like that, but not really. It's not an ideological choice that he's making. It's more of like his people were hunted for like hundreds if not thousands of years by these monsters that like slaughtered all of them, and it's like that's the whole basis for them being Quincies, to fight back, of like where their powers come from. So it's kind of like all right, are you a fan of Doctor Who? Okay, it's like in the scene, there was an episode of Doctor Who where David Tennant's 10th Doctor meets Jack Harkness, who is like this immortal being that like just never dies, and he's like just like he's like something that should not exist, right? And the Doctor has a moment where he's just like, I can't even even standing and looking at you, Jack, you know, you're wrong. There's something about you that just doesn't check, you know what I mean? And so Jack actually responds just like, oh, are you being prejudiced? And the Doctor's like, I don't know, never looked at it like that. I mean, but it is kind of like that. So when I just want to say, like, when Uryu is saying I can't go with you to Hueco Mundo, he's not being like, I have better stuff to do, or I just don't feel like helping you. He does want to help Ichigo. It's just that I can't go and like help Hollows. That's just not how we are. And so Ichigo understands, and that's just how it is. And then boom, Urahara shows up, and he's just like, hey, do you guys need a first-class trip to Hueco Mundo? Well, that could be arranged. I can arrange that for you. And then we get to the cut in the episode. We get the one stat screen of Arrancars. We have Harribel surrounded by her Fraxion, Milo Rose, Sun, and Apache, who are the Trace Bestia. And then we have the other one, which is Hueco Mundo, which is just like a stat screen explaining Hueco Mundo, the land where the Hollows dwell. Also a parallel to the Hungry Ghost Realm in Buddhist Cycle of Samsara. So now we cut back to Yuha's palace, though, very briefly, where this is something that's actually, it's in the manga, but the scene in the manga is extended a bit, so they might go bring that to the next episode. But this is a shot with a new Quincy named Hashwalth, who's let me see if we actually get a shot of him more in the manga than in the anime, because here his hood is kind of like obscuring who he really is, but in the manga, it's actually something that I think we do actually get to see his face. Hold on a second. We'll get to it in a moment here. Yes, actually, his face is completely shown in the manga. He doesn't even have his hood up at all. We see his hair, we see his face, we see everything. So this is Jugram Hashwalth, who is Sternritter B, the Balance, and is the right-hand man to Yhwach, essentially, who has powers that are sort of like parallel to his own. And we'll find out more about him as we go, of course. And I hope we get a little bit more of his backstory, honestly, because his was given a little bit, but not that much. But he's examining Ebern's medallion, and in the manga, he goes on to explain that Ebern was unable to capture Ichigo Kurisaki's Bankai, which this leads to Yhwach saying that, well, all right, I guess we're just going to have to try. I guess it was worth a shot to see if we could steal it, but since we can't, I guess we're going to have to go through some other method in order to, like, get his Bankai, or, like, he's a special war power, so we're going to have to see where this goes. So the scene here is pretty much just Hashwalth picking up Ebern's medallion as, like, the janitorial staff over here is, like, mopping up the blood. I love this is, like, a mystical, magical room that's, like, powered by, like, reishi on the floor, and they still have to have, like, a janitorial staff with, like, mops and buckets and brooms to, like, clean up the corpse that's, like, in front of Yhwach. I love that. Anyway, the Quincy janitors, their Quincy weapon is they summon a broom. You know, that's their Quincy, that's their holy bow, is a broom. But anyway, this scene ends with Hashwalth basically just saying, like, hey, the medallion, it's really interesting. And then Yhwach is like, and then that's the end of the scene. They don't really go on to it. So now... yeah, however, and then that's it. So now we cut into the Garganta, which is okay, so how to explain the Garganta? Okay, so imagine the entire universe of the Bleach world is the Garganta. It's this black void of, like, not Riatsu, not anything. It's just a black void of nothingness, of just swirling energy that's, like, taking up, like, the entire universe. then each of the individual universes, like the Soul Society, the World of the Living, Hueco Mundo, all of those places are bubbles or little spheres that exist in this vast, cataclysm of just nothingness, okay? And so in order to travel from the living world to Hueco Mundo, you need to go through the Garganta. You need to go through this vast, empty nothingness. And in order to do that, you actually need to make your own pathway because one does not exist. And so we see this here. We see Urahara making a path with his own reishi in order to get to the other side. Now, when it comes to the Soul Society and the living world, there exists the Dangai, which is the precipice world, which is sort of like, here's one, like, oh, actually, you know what? I have the whiteboard here. I can mess with this. Okay, so I'm going to throw up a whiteboard here really quick. Okay, so imagine, like, this circle here is everything that exists, and this is mostly all just the Garganta. I'm just going to color this in here, okay? This is all Garganta, all of it, okay? And then let me see if I can actually change, like, the color here. Oh my god, we're upgrading now. This is great. Oh yeah, okay. Let's go yellow. Okay. And then all the different dimensions are like, here's Hueco Mundo right here. I'm just gonna draw, Hueco Mundo is here, and then like the living world is like here, and then the Soul Society is here, and then like the Dangai is like a tunnel that connects them, okay? So it's like that. But if you want to get from the living world to the Hueco Mundo or Soul Society Hueco Mundo, there's no tunnel. There's no Dangai world. You literally have to, like, make your own path through the Garganta here. And there's other worlds, too. There's the Valley of Screams, which is, like, another kind of precipice world, which is interesting in and of itself. We'll get to that later. But, yeah, so the Garganta is, like, basically just this massive void of nothingness that you have to pass through. So that's how that works there. Okay. So there we are right there. We have the group arriving in Hueco Mundo. This is a great shot in the anime and the manga, by the way, of just the group, like, leaving the Garganta as it opens up. And, of course, they're, like, in typical Kisuke Urahara fashion, he pops them out, like, 1,000 feet above the ground because, of course. And Nell even freaks out over this. Like, oh, my God, we're in the sky. There's enemies down there. We're going to get attacked. And then Ichigo's just like, it's usually like this with Urahara. We're used to this at this point. So they land, and here's some of the Quincies that are, like, bringing the wrong cars over to be these are the hunting squads that are mentioned. There's a German name for them, but I can't pronounce it. But anyway, yeah, so they're bringing a bunch of cloaked wrong cars to be selected as maybe new Vanguard members for the Quincy army, and then all the other Quincies, all the other wrong cars there have been killed. So, that's where Ichigo and his group arrive, and there's just a massive, it's just a death field. It's just like a massive area where nothing but Arrancar corpses are. Orihime even uses either Shuno or Ayame, I think that's Ayame, the Shunshin Rika, to go and, like, scan the battlefield to make sure if any of them are dead, of which she cannot find any. She can't find any that are still alive that she can bring back. Although, which is weird, though, because then you get to the question of, like, can Orihime bring back the dead with her powers? And you would say no, that would kind of be a hack's ability, but, like, she's done that before, though. Like, there was an Arrancar named Menoli, who we're actually going to see later in this episode, that got the upper half of her body completely obliterated by Grimmjow, and Orihime was able to heal her. Like, literally, like, all that was left of Menoli was, like, just her legs and nothing else. And Orihime was able to heal her, and she's in this episode. So you would maybe argue maybe there's a time difference. Maybe if you've been dead for a certain amount of time, like, she can't bring you back. But, like, in that particular instance, yes, she can very clearly revive the dead. So there's probably a reason why she's not doing it right now, but she can do that. So now we cut over to, oh, by the way, one other thing. We see the reishi fire here that's, like, burning all of Hueco Mundo, which is like a blue fire that ignites on anything that is made of reishi. So even the rocks and sand that usually would not burn, burn here. But that's not the moment I wanted to bring up. There's actually a comic relief moment here between Ichigo and Pesce that I'm kind of upset that they omitted. And it's a scene when they all land, and I don't think it's in this episode. Hold on, let me see if I could try to find it here. But I don't think it's here. It's a scene when... Oh, there's a scene where Ichigo covers Nell's eyes because it's basically just, like, the mass extinction of, like, her entire kind. So that's kind of messed up a little bit. But, yeah, I don't think there's a scene. But there's a scene when they first land, and Ichigo covers Peché's mouth because he's talking too loudly, and Peché's mouth is not actually that part right there, which is like the proboscis coming off of him, and that was kind of a funny moment, but I don't think they included it here, but it's whatever. So anyway, now we cut over to the hunting squad captain. Now, we actually get his name in the manga as well, but it does not announce him. This is Kurhei Opie, or maybe Quilhei Opie. I still don't really know how to pronounce his name, and I don't think they say it in this episode either. They just call him Captain. So maybe next episode we'll get to actually hear how his name is pronounced. But Kurhei Opie, in the manga, it was just announced that he was the general hunting commander of the Hueco Mundo hunter unit. Quilhei Opie, that's it. Later on, it's revealed that he has the letter of J, which stands for the jail, but it was never revealed that he was actually a sternritter. But yes, here it is plainly spelled out that yes, Kurhei Opie is Sternritter J. It doesn't say the jail, I don't think. It just says he's Sternritter J, but it confirms that that's who he was, okay? It's just weird because all throughout the original manga, it's very clear that he was a Sternritter because he has a letter designation, but Kurhei was never directly referenced as a member of the Sternritter in the manga. He was only mentioned as the captain of the hunting squad, and that was it. So that's interesting. So his voice fits very well. He's a very cruel, evil son of a bitch, as to describe him nicely, I guess. And so he basically lines up all of the hollows, and he's just like, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to go up and down and just stab you, and if you want to, join us, get down and kiss our boots, and then you might have a chance of joining us. And then there was one of the Arankars that's like, okay, all we have to do is bow down. Okay, I'll do that. And then he just gets stabbed. And then Kurhei just goes down the line and just, nope, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. And he's just stabbing bodies. He's not even asking questions. It's not an interrogation. It's not an interview process. It's just mass slaughter for the sake of mass slaughter. That's what the Quincies are all about here. Until, boom, the Trace Bestia arrive. So we have Mila Rose there, who's really working on the ab crunches. Damn. Like, to be fair, though, I don't think we saw, no, I think we saw, because she always wore, like, a very revealing outfit in the original, but, man, she's really been working out. Then we have Sung Sung, who's in the middle there, and then we have Apache, who's on the right. And so their resurrections all are based off of, well, like all the Arankars, they're based on animals. That doesn't really narrow it down. But Mila Rose is Leona, which is a lion. Sung Sung is Anaconda, which is an anaconda. It's a snake. And then Apache is a deer, which I actually kind of forget Apache's resurrection name right there. It wasn't just deer. It was like Serviana or something. It's like, I think the Spanish word for deer, which I'm not really that great at Spanish either, but whatever. Anyway, so they show up, and it's actually been revealed, like, what they were doing. I don't think it was actually shown, like, what happened to them in the manga, why they were not there to fight alongside Harribel. So, yeah, in the manga, I don't think it's actually explained what they were doing, but in the anime here, it says that they were sent away by Harribel. Like, Harribel sent them on a mission or something, and they were away when Yhwa's army attacked, and now they're returned, and they found out that, their leader, their queen, essentially, has been kidnapped by the Quincies and tortured. So now they're here to kick ass and take names, and they don't care about your name, okay? So they begin to fight. Oh, by the way, yeah, there was also a shot of Menoli and Lolly earlier. They showed up and then immediately got one-shotted by the hollows. I didn't even take a Q point for that, so whatever. Anyway, they even get a title card. Lolly and Menoli did not get a title card, but these girls get a title card. Mila Rose, Sun Sun, Apache, Trace Bestia. Awesome. All right. And so this actually changes a little bit up from the manga. In the manga, I think it's Sung Sung that just immediately jumps down and fights against Kurhei, while Apache and Mila Rose fight against the random soldiers. Here, it's like all of them kind of slaughtering the soldiers, while Kurhei is just watching them and just being like, yes, I suppose they should probably join the army, I guess. And then Sung Sung appears behind Kurhei and then fights him. So it's like the same basic result. It's just like a little bit different. It's the same idea where Apache and Mila Rose kind of deal with all the fodder, and then Sung Sung is the one that directly deals against Kurhei, and now they defeat everybody, and now they're fighting. There's also a scene, I think, omitted where the squad members of the hunting squad, I think they're called just the Soldats in the Quincy, are like, Captain Kurhei, please give us an order to withdraw. We're getting massacred out here. And then Kurhei just doesn't give a shit. That's a running theme with a lot of the Quincies. It's just like, whatever, I don't care. You guys can die. Who cares? And so now it's Kurhei fighting against the Trace Bestia. we now have a brief scene at the Soul Society where Akon is just delivering a report, and then Mayuri steps up, and he's basically just like, you know, the more astute captains could probably realize at this moment, the enemy are in fact Quincies. That's like the big revelation at this point. Like, this was like a good 8 chapters into the arc in the manga. This is the 2nd episode. Like, they're very clearly Quincies, and Mayuri even mentions that, like, you know, the captain's probably already figured this out, but, like, yeah, the Quincies are back, and they're a little bit pissed off at us, and now they're forming this group called the Vandenreich, and they're going to be invading us. They're the Ryoka that invaded us last time, and there's going to be a war, and, yeah, we should probably be on our toes about that. Now, in the manga right after this, the captains all have a moment to sort of deliberate and talk about the Quincies. That's probably going to be saved for the next episode. So we cut back to Hueco Mundo, where we see Ichigo arriving to see Kurhei annihilating the Tres Bestia. They are all wiped out. Anyway, so that next episode will be Ichigo fights against Kurhei, Sternritter J, the jail. So we'll see where that's going to go there. And then we also have the ending theme, which is Saihate by Senna Rin, which is cool. It's this really, I mean, I obviously can't play the song, but I love the layout here of all of the Shinigami Zanpakuto, like we see Kenpachis, and we see Sogyo no Kotowari, and we see Rojiro Otorobashi's Kinshara, and we see Shunsui's Katen Kyokatsu. We see all that here in the shots, and it's just a very somber song. And then at the end here, we get another poem, this is the poem from volume 56, which is the following volume. So we're actually moving along pretty fast here. If there's 40 episodes, we're going to run out of poems, because there's only one of these in every volume. So maybe Kubo will add, I almost said Oda, maybe Kubo will add a few more poems as the season goes, because we're not going to have, there's probably only like 19 or 20 poems, and there's definitely not going to be just 19 or 20 episodes. But anyway, yeah. So next episode is going to be called The March of the Star-Cross, and probably going to be the episode where the Quincies first invade the Soul Society. It might be at the end of the next episode we're going to see that. So yes, that was the 2nd episode of Bleach 1000-Year Blood War, 2nd episode of BAN-KAST. Hope you all enjoyed. Of course, as always, let me know about anything that I forgot in the episode that was like major, like super important, in the comments down below. Let me know about anybody that you would like to see as a guest on BAN-KAST to go over the episode with me in the future. This is shaping up to be a nice little episode, a nice little series I have here. Also, it is available on Spotify now. Last week it took a little while for the Spotify link to confirm, but this week it should be up on Spotify, so I'll leave the link down there in the description below so you can check out Spotify. It should be up a little bit after the episode goes online on YouTube. It should go YouTube first and then the Spotify. Also, in the future, because I got a lot of questions about this, like when exactly do these come out, I'm going to aim to get the BAN-KAST episodes out on the same the same day as the episode is officially released on Hulu and Disney Plus, which is Tuesday in Eastern Time. So the episode, I think, came out like a few hours ago, so it'll be like the same day or like a few hours after the episode comes out officially. That is when I'm going to be covering it. That's when BAN-KAST should be up. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Techie 101 signing out. Later, everyone.